What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and today I have my Green Bay Packers season preview for y'all, so let's hop into it. And if you like this type of stuff, please subscribe. But anyway, last year they finished with an 8-9 record. They missed the playoffs and they finished third place in the NFC North in what would be Aaron Rodgers' last year as a Packer. And normally when I do these videos, I do it by like the free agent signings and then their re-signs and then their departures. But because the Packers had so many more departures than re-signs and free agents that they brought in, I'm going to actually kind of do it backwards and do who left first. So starting off with quarterback Aaron Rodgers, the big one. He got traded away to the New York Jets this offseason, which now Jordan Love, it's your turn to step up. It'll be interesting to see how he fills that role. So big loss right out of the gate. Tight end Robert Tonyan, another guy that they lost. Wide receiver Alan Lazard and wide receiver Randall Cobb, who will be joining Aaron Rodgers on the Jets. Both guys I think the Packers will miss. Tight end Mercedes Lewis, kicker Mason Crosby, safety Adrian Amos, and defensive tackle Jaron Reed. So a ton of veteran guys that have seemed to have played for the Packers since like forever, but still a huge hit to this team. And they didn't really go out and sign a bunch of people. And the only notable guys I have on my paper, long snapper Matthew Orzak, defensive back Tervavius Moore, and defensive back Jonathan Owens. So only a few guys that they brought in, and they only re-signed a handful of guys as well. Linebackers Eric Wilson and Justin Hollins. They re-signed quarterback Jordan Love, as well as defensive backs Rudy Ford and Corey Ballantyne. So they really didn't re-sign too many guys, like I said before, and they really didn't bring in too many people, but they addressed a lot of their needs through the NFL draft. I want to say they had the most picks out of any team. If they didn't, they were right up there. So with their first pick, they got defensive end Lucas Van Ness. Then they grabbed tight end Luke Musgrave, then wide receiver Jalen Reed, then tight end Tucker Kraft. Then they got defensive tackle Colby Wooden, quarterback Sean Clifford, wide receiver Dontavian Wicks, defensive end Carl Brooks, kicker Anders Carlson, cornerback Carrington Valentine, running back Lou Nichols III, safety Anthony Johnson Jr., wide receiver Grant DeBose. So they drafted a ton of positions that they lost in free agency. And this team is going to be really young, a lot of inexperience on this team. They have the same coaching staff, so there's not going to be any coaching turnover. But with inexperience comes a lot of bumps and bruises and growing pains. So I don't think this is going to be a great year for the Packers. I think there will be a lot of growing pains. But with that in mind, let's move over to their schedule and my record prediction for the Green Bay Packers. All right, now, so in week one, they have the Chicago Bears. And even though the Bears are supposed to be a new and improved team with Justin Fields at quarterback, I'm still not super high on the Bears. And the Packers still do have playmakers in A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones and Jair Alexander on defense. And I do think the Packers will split with the Bears this year. So I do believe the Packers will win in week one, but ultimately lose in week 18. And then in week two, they have the Atlanta Falcons, and the Falcons are an interesting team. The NFC South is a relatively weaker division, so it'll come down between the Falcons and the Saints, in my opinion, for that division. And I do think Atlanta is just a little bit more talented all around the ball than the Packers are this year. And even though the Packers, in my opinion, have a better coaching staff than the Falcons, I don't see the Packers winning this game against the Falcons. So I'll give them an L right there. And then in week three, they play the New Orleans Saints. And the Saints brought in Derek Carr this year. And I think just that fact alone makes the Saints a better team than the Packers. So I think the Packers lose this one right here to the Saints. And then in week four, they play the Detroit Lions, who I am super high on this year. I know I state that in like what seems like every single video that the Lions seem to pop up in. But I think the Packers get swept by the Lions this year. So I'm going to give them a loss right here as well as down here. Then they play the Raiders, who are one of those teams that I really like. The Raiders could be decently good or they could be pretty bad. And for the sake of the video and this being a Packers video, I will give the Packers the win right here. I think the losing stops, and that brings them to their bye week, which is relatively early. And then coming out of the bye week, they have the Denver Broncos, who are another team that could be really good. They could be really bad. It's just kind of up in the air, and they're just going to have to prove it. And I don't really know, but I'm going to give the Packers the benefit of the doubt right here just because they're coming out of the bye. They're a little bit more well rested. They had a little bit more time to prepare for the Broncos. Whereas if they were just playing the Broncos without a bye, I'd give it to the Broncos 100%. Then they play the Minnesota Vikings, the first of two matchups, and I think the Vikings are also going to sweep the Packers this year. So I'm going to give them a loss right here and a loss right here in week 17. But then they have the Los Angeles Rams, and I'm not high on the Rams either. I know they sold a lot. I know their guys are getting older and they aren't what they used to be. And so maybe the Packers can win this game. I think it'll be a close game depending on how healthy both teams are. I know the Rams have battled with a ton of injuries. So if that is the case once again this year, I do feel the Packers can win this game. So I'll give them the win right there. Then they have the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I don't think the Steelers are going to be great this year, but with Mike Tomlin as the head coach, the Steelers always have a great defense, and just that fact that they have a great defense, I think can frustrate Jordan Love in the Packers offense, and I think this will also be a loss for the team, as well as the following week when they play the Los Angeles Chargers. And then we already talked about the Detroit loss. Moving on, then they have the Kansas City Chiefs, which not too much to debate about this one. I do feel the Packers are going to lose. Then they have the New York Giants, who are in the ultra competitive NFC East, and they lose this one as well. But then they have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, regardless of who their quarterback is, whether it's Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, I don't think either of those guys is a bona fide starting quarterback in this league. And the Packers will probably be able to squeak one out right here. Carolina Panthers right here, who are another interesting team. They had the first overall pick last year or this year, and they got Bryce Young. And by this point in the season, I expect Bryce Young to be the best he's been all season. He's had numerous weeks to prepare. And if not, and if he's not ready, then it's Andy Dalton at quarterback for the Panthers. And with all the weapons they brought in, I feel the Panthers can win this game either way. So this will be a loss for the Packers as well. So that means their 2023 season total is 5 wins. So 5-12. And just think this is a down year. They lost so many veterans. They're a really young team. They're building towards the future. Maybe in a few years they will be competitive once again. But I think this division is going to come down between Minnesota and Detroit. But let me know what you guys think of this 5-12 record. Do you think they're going to win more? Do you think they're going to lose more? Or do you think this is just about right? Please let me know your thoughts down below. Like the video, please subscribe, and I'll catch you with another season preview. God bless.